up your engine! All right, here's some of the most anticipated new cars for 2021. The new Chevrolet Corvette Z06. It's going to be up to 600 horsepower. From last year's 500 horsepower. Wider tires, bigger brakes. Let's hope they have better wheels, because they have those stupid cast instead of forged wheels, and they're all breaking and bending, and GM's not standing behind them. So let's hope they upgrade the wheels too. The next one is the Volkswagen ID.4. Volkswagen's electric vehicle. Looks like a crossover SUV. 200 horsepower. It says it's got a 250-mile driving range. It'd be zippy enough, be able to go a long distance. And the list price is $32,495. You take in consideration all the federal incentives for buying an electric car. So this isn't an outrageously expensive Tesla. Much more reasonably priced. And speaking of electric, the Rivian R1T. The Rivian electric pickup. It doesn't look like some fancy cyber nonsense that Tesla's doing. It looks like a real pickup truck. It's going to have 11,000 pounds of towing capacity. It's going to have a range of 250 miles to 300 miles. This has to be verified because they're not out yet. Not cheap though. It's going to start at $75,000. So this isn't for old Billy Bob. This is only for old Billy Bob if he owns his own oil field or horse ranch in Kentucky. Another anticipated one is a 2021 Ford Bronco off-road version. They're going to have available 35-inch tires for the serious off-roaders. The 2022 Golf R. Unfortunately, it's a European model. You can only get it in Europe. They're putting a racing one there. They're very popular in Europe, where guys know how to work on them, where parts are cheaper. In the United States, not so much. But for European viewers there, the Golf R is going to be out, and I'm sure they'll sell quite a few of them. It's got 315 horsepower, a lot of zip for a Volkswagen. It's got a 7-speed DSG transmission, which kind of intrigues me because I always thought they had to be even. They had to be like 4, 6, 8, 10. Well, this one's a 7-speed. Who knows what the Germans are up with their technology there. And last but not least, the 2022 Hummer EV Scout. The electric Hummer. The 2022 Hummer SUT. They can't call it an SUV. They're calling it an SUT. What's in the name? It's got 3 electric motors. They claim it's going to have a range of 350 miles and 1,000 horsepower. A lot of power. Of course, realize it's GM's first big venture into a big electric vehicle. And from what I read, they're northward of 100,000, so they're not giving them away. But if you got that kind of money lying around and you want to get an SUT electric Hummer, it's gonna be coming out soon. I say, let someone else buy it and try it out. See how they hold up over time. You never know. I don't like gambling the dice with $100,000. Unless I'm sure I'm gonna win in the first place. Before Jar says, hey, I have an 06 Grand Prix. My girlfriend was mad. She slashed my tires and put antifreeze in the gas. I started and ran, but it's not running right. Do not run it anymore. Antifreeze, when it gets into the engine and explodes, creates steam. You can blow your engine. It's called hydro-locking. What you want to do is you want to drain the gas out, change the fuel filter, put new gas in, and pray it hadn't damaged the engine. Because if it's damaged, it's already damaged. But you don't want to start it now. You want to drain the gas tank, change the fuel filter, pray it didn't damage the engine. If you start it back up and it still doesn't run right, then it has damaged the engine. And an 06 Grand Prix, you're going to spend a lot of money rebuilding an engine on it. Then just pray you didn't start it too long and it didn't do any serious damage. Sometimes if she didn't put too much antifreeze, there wasn't enough steam to do damage. Pray that's the case. Chaseboy4 says, hey, half the time I don't know by what Google tells me, so I have a question. Do aftermarket exhaust tips really improve economy and horsepower? I purchased a 4-inch JDM titanium stainless tip for my Honda Civic. I'm having it installed. Just a tip isn't going to do anything. If they did, they'd put them when they build them in a factory because they get bonus points for better gas mileage and higher fuel economy, more power. You know, come on, let's face it. It's not magic. It's not going to fix anything. Now, if you're talking about changing the whole muffler and a tip and it's a free-flowing muffler, you can actually get a little bit more power and gas mileage, but you would also have to have the computer reprogrammed because there's less back pressure. And if you do it on a modern car, and you go where you have to get emissions inspection, a lot of times it won't pass the emission inspection, so you don't really want to mess around with that. But just the tip itself, it looks cool, but it doesn't make your car run any better. If it did, they would put them on at the factory. Anything that gets better gas mileage, they are so pressed at the manufacturers to get better gas mileage. If it worked, they'd put them on all the cars they built. But it doesn't. So it just looks cool. It doesn't make you get more power. Lexton says, I'm planning to buy a 2016 and 19 Lexus GSF or GS350F Sport. I'm worried about the F V8 because maintenance costs. I like the added power, but I want the bulletproof reliability of the 350 V6. Yes, get the 350 V6. Those things can run forever. Now, the V8s are nice engines, but you start adding all that complexity of the V8s, they get worse gas mileage, they have a little bit more power. Those are fast enough cars anyways. And they're not race cars by any stretch of the imagination. You go against really fast cars like Corvettes and stuff, they'd blow you off the road. They're not race cars. They're luxury sports cars. So the 350's plenty fine. When I've driven them all, and yeah, I like the faster one, but hey, I don't buy them. I road test them when they're brand new, and yeah, great. Somebody else is buying the gas, somebody else bought the car, and I'm me. I'm just road testing it. So you want long life, get the 350. You'll be happier in the long run. Hickle 3 says, I'm thinking about selling my 2012 Mazda 3 out-touring four-door sedan with 166,000 miles and getting an 04 to 010 Mercury Grand Marquis with half the mileage. Nothing wrong with the Mazda. I just don't like the rough ride. That's not that bad of an idea. The Mazda's got 166,000 miles and it's 9 years old. Odds are that transmission's going to go out at some point in time. A Grand Marquis with half that mileage can go a long way. If you do a lot of highway driving, they get decent gas mileage on the highway. Now, if you compare the Mazda gas mileage in town with the Mercury gas mileage in town, it's going to be a lot worse than a Mercury, but you seem to do a lot of driving, you like a smoother ride, there's nothing wrong. Make sure that a mechanic like me checks out the Mercury. Things can be wrecked, flooded, stolen, who knows, on fire. You want to make sure it's in good shape and make sure if you live up north it's not rotten with rust, but those are nice Panther body, solid frames. They can last a long time, and if you want a smooth ride, hey, it's a nice cheaper way to go to get a smooth ride. They don't make them anymore, so the resale prices are down, and you could get a good deal. You want a smoother car, go right ahead. They do ride a lot better than those Mazdas. Good Scotty says, hey, I got another question. My 09 Honda Civic, 146,000 miles. Should I change the fuel filter? I know it's in a gas tank. It doesn't look hard to do. What do you think? Yes, change it. You might as well. It's good maintenance. Now, realize that the filter's inside a little canister, and it's in the gas tank, but it's not that hard to get to. It's basically a paper-based filtration material, and over time it will degrade. So what the heck? Put a filter in. Now, if you don't, it might run fine for quite some time, but here's the thing. As it gets old, degrades, it can build up a little blockage. The pump has to work harder, then the pump can burn out. They cost a fortune. If you change the filter every once in a while, you got a clean path. It won't build up pressure, and your pump will last a lot longer. Price what a pump assembly costs for that, and you'll say, hey, I'm going to change the filter. And it's not that hard. You stick back seat out on bolt stuff. Anybody can do it with just plain old hand tools. It's an easy thing to do, and it's one of those things that out of sight, out of mind, it's hiding in a tank so you don't think about it, so it's a good idea. 146,000 miles. Go ahead and change it now. Well, you don't know anything of Apple and self-driving cars, but Apple's self-driving car program has a new boss. They're shuffling things around again. It's called Project Titan. They're trying to make self-driving cars. Apple gets their hands on everything. They got so much money, I guess they don't know what to do with it. Well, their new leader is John Gianandrea. And they say the day-to-day operations still belong to the old guy, Doug Field, who came back to Apple after 5 years in Tesla. And they're not saying what this Italian-American guy is actually doing, but he's been with them for quite some time with machine learning products that they've been doing. Now, they originally started it to make a Tesla fighting an electric autonomous car. Well, as old Scotty says, it's going to be a long time before there's self-driving cars. There's no arguing this. They're tight-lipped at Apple. They're never going to tell you what they got coming up. So they do have problems, though. To give you an idea, the state of California keeps records of all this stuff. And the stuff they've been testing in California show that while they were testing these self-driving cars, from June to November of 2019, they only drove 7,544 miles. Their autonomous driving system had to be disengaged 73 times in 7,500 miles. That's not too good, because when you compare them to a Chinese firm called Baidu, which is doing autonomous driving, they did 100,000 miles of testing, and it only had to disengage 6 times. So in this case, the Chinese are way ahead of what Apple's doing. Don't hold your breath about autonomous driving here in the United States. That's all I gotta say, you know. Maybe the Chinese will make their own lanes and have autonomous driving. They got so many roads in China from what I've seen. Maybe they'll have special lanes just for autonomous driving that are blocked off, and that would be perfectly fine. It's just you can't have people in cars that drive themselves in the same lane. People are too unpredictable. Bad things will happen. Apple won't even tell you what state their self-driving cars in. They just decided to put another guy ahead because obviously they weren't happy what was happening with the original guy, since it disengaged 73 times in 7,500 miles, and the Chinese only disengaged 6 times in 100,000 miles. So they're way ahead of us there, but I don't care what anybody says. It's still going to be a long time before there's autonomous self-driving cars. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.